Jonathan, hey, congratulations on your new series, Robin Hood.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Gig. Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you, by the way.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet both of you. And you know what? I love this story. I always watch every single Robin Hood iterations out there. But we always have to ask is why retell this story over and over again?
Well, I think because it's always been retold over and over again for hundreds of years. I think our sort of passion for this was to tell an origin story. It's just it's a the sort of way into it to meet Rob Young, to meet him with his family, to see him in his community, to see sort of the world that he lives in and the injustice of that world, and to tell the story of how this young boy becomes this legend, this myth, this person that we're talking about centuries and centuries later. So for us, that was the reason to sort of do it and to ground it in a more believable human historical world.
I I
Now, yeah, go ahead.
I was reading a lot in the period. I've always been fascinated by the period. I'm a huge fan of the medieval period, and Robin Hood sort of dominates the medieval period. And I read a lot of the early stories about him. And out of that came this more human, grounded version that I realized we hadn't really seen in a movie or in a TV show before. And out of that sort of sprung this conversation between John and myself about what a show could be, that takes this slightly fresher version. Um, that's how it really started.
Can you talk about additional lores or stories that you may include into this series? I already noticed that you're already starting to incorporate a little bit more Celtic lore into something like this.
Well, that was a very we were what we really liked is the idea of the period that this story takes place in, which is sort of 1160, 1170, which is 100 years after the Norman conquest of England. And basically the Normans were a slightly more advanced race of people from mainland Europe, and they invaded and conquered England, which was more Saxon, more Celtic, more pagan. There was Christianity in England at the time, but it was balanced with a lot of paganism. And so you have this sort of Christianity coming into England, and taxation and a lot of stone castles and a more advanced race of people really, and they dominated the Saxon people and their folk history. And that was a very interesting thing to sort of deal with and touch on in the story. The wedding scene, for example, in the pilot is something that we really loved. And because that's a pagan wedding, and we don't get to see a pagan wedding in a forest very often, and the ritual, the ceremony of a pagan wedding, we all know what a church wedding looks like, or a wedding within, the various faiths that we know today. But so the idea of a pagan wedding and, the singing, the dancing, the drinking, the fighting, that was kind of fun.
It's fun.
One last thing. I love, sets during the Middle Ages here. Did you have to build them, and what was it like tearing it back down after the season ended?
We didn't
They're
tear them down.
they were all built. Yeah, they were all built. I mean, Nottingham, it's Westminster, and all of the interiors. It was a ton of set building. They're beautiful. They're very, 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 very beautiful. But Nottingham's it's still out there on the back lot in Belgrade, Serbia, at PFI Studios.
Yeah, they're huge. We built huge sets,
Yeah.
incredible sets. They're lavish and beautiful, and Nottingham Castle and town. You can walk around. It's an enormous set, and we were very lucky and fortunate to be able to make it. It's they're all there. I mean, they still exist.
Well, I hope they certainly do because we were looking forward to season two, and they're very impressive. So, both of you, thank you very much for carrying this conversation about Robin
Thank
Hood
you
with
so
us.
much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.